This is the new batch of sunflowers. After 24 hours you can see that some of them are already starting to sprout. I think one problem with soaking seeds separately is that when you finally transfer them to the growing area, you may do some damage to the fine root hairs that are being put out, and this could actually delay the process. So this is what it looks like after 48 hours. Germination is continuing. The little rootlets seem to be longer. Now when I came and pulled the top pan off this morning, I did notice that the top paper towel was dry. So this may have caused a problem. Let me see here. If we go a little closer. Okay. But anyway, in the center of the screen you can see a seed or two that are putting out roots down into the paper towel on the bottom. So, progress. At this point in time, this tray is going to go off of the germination pads because I need to start some wheatgrass for a delivery in about 10 days. And I think in the past I did some peas without... I did some peas without putting them on the warming trays. In the past I did some peas without doing them on the warming pads because peas and other legumes are kind of a cool weather crop in any case, and they may not even benefit from being on the germination pad. Here's a quick update on the tray where I crowded a whole bunch of seeds together. There's an area in here where everything is just kind of falling down, and some of them are just, it looks like they're just breaking apart here. There may be some kind of rot at the bottom, maybe from too much water. So I think the idea is basically okay. It's at this point in time, I would say my execution is not so hot. Here's a part of the same tray that has fallen over due to a lack of water, but which also stood right back up pretty much when I gave it some water. So, this is a desirable objective, to produce more poundage per pan. It's just a question of technique. Now I will say that all along this pan has had nutrient solution that contained the grapefruit seed extract and oregano, which I am using in the attempt to hold down funguses. But in one part of this, and perhaps there's a part in the back there too, where it's kind of fallen apart, and that could be too much water, maybe rotting. This guy Brent, who's the inspiration for this, uses these trays that have a lot of openings in the bottom, and I think I may have to order some of those. I don't really need 10 each, but that's the quantity that they sell on Amazon, and this is a good idea worth pursuing. So what I did in both these areas where I was seeing this rot effect was I just reached in basically and yanked them out, hoping to kind of minimize the infection, and then I went in and sprayed those areas with my antifungal, the grapeseed extract and oregano mix. So hopefully this will slow this down and let me keep some of the good stuff. So this is what happens when you let things go too long. These were started the 20th of April, so by the 4th or so of May they should have been harvested. I just let them grow because I was busy and had other stuff to do and eat and things. So anyway, at this point in time you can see that they're just kind of like dying out in this one spot here. So I will harvest the ones that look good. It doesn't really look rotten down there. It just looks like they're exhausted. You've used up all the nutrition, and even though I'm giving it, you've used up all the nutrition in the seed, and even though I'm giving it hydroponic mixture, that is apparently not enough to keep them going. So, around, this part in the center, there's all this kind of limp stuff, but then, this stuff here and over here still looks pretty good, so I'm going to harvest this and use this. Okay, so here's my experiment in planting more densely. These should have been going until the 19th, but you can see they're just kind of falling all over the place in spite of my efforts to feed them. Down in this area, just maybe rot, maybe something else, but I took them out. I am going to harvest the good looking tops on these, and I will have another experiment going as far as a way to do this. It's still a really good idea to grow them very densely and get several pounds out of one tray. But this particular experiment, which was basically a wick and several layers of paper towels or something, simply did not do well enough. And the next thing will be to use a tray with a lot of holes in the bottom and put a layer of plain burlap in the bottom of the tray, and then lay the seeds on that, thinking that the burlap will be more porous in terms of letting the roots go through, whereas the unbleached cotton, the unbleached muslin, that the burlap, the thinking is that the burlap will be more amenable to having the roots go through compared to the unbleached muslin. And then if there's plenty of holes in the bottom of the tray, I will, the roots will be able to get to the water underneath. So this is the sad state of my crowded tray of sunflowers at 14 days. Okay, so, the idea of crowding is not a problem, but I would say my particular method here with the wicks and the paper towels simply did not do the job. One thing that has occurred to me is that I could have harvested these even at like 10 days, 8 days, something like that. More a matter of just kind of watching and see what's happening. Now down at this end is where I had the problems with not getting enough water, so these were delayed. But the the heads were basically pretty well formed. Okay, so it's just also a matter of just watching and see what the plants are actually doing. I don't really regard this as a failure in the sense that when you're developing a process, you should be testing to failure to see what happens when things go wrong or you don't do all the right things. So what you see here is basically that I am evolving toward a true hydroponic setup for this, particularly for a crop like sunflowers that needs a lot of moisture. I'm growing the pea sprouts and the wheatgrass successfully in these stainless pans, now without wicks, but also trying to keep them watered. But I think the sunflower needs special treatment, but it's a worthwhile crop because it's about 25 or 30% protein when it's done. Okay, so here's a quick update on my sunflowers that were planted on the 19th of May. These were planted on top. These were planted with a layer of burlap over 2 layers of paper towels, and just kind of thrown in, not soaked, and just allowed to come up. They seem to be doing pretty well. And if you look down below here, you see some places where the roots are coming out, and I would think this is basically meeting my expectations in terms of roots coming out and hooking into the burlap and giving them the support they need. I did have a little patch of mold down here, which I sprayed with my GSE and oregano mix. So other than that, they're pretty clean.